Okay, so welcome everyone to the Wisdom Wednesdays. This is presented by Rise Professionals, and this Wisdom Wednesday is offered twice a month. So we are really looking forward to kicking off February with you. Welcome to the topic of social selling. And so today, what you guys are going to hear about is we're going to hear some insights into this lead generation technique. This is where sales directly interacts with their prospects on social media platforms. And so, with your attendance today, you're going to learn insights into establishing value, building meaningful relationships, and to become a natural point of contact when a prospect is ready to buy. My name is Courtney Helfrich here at Wilbur Group, and I am the 2025 Rise Education Committee Chair who's going to moderate the panel for this topic. Today, we have two panelists. So first, we have James Roloff. James is a seasoned sales consultant with a passion for all things digital. Having built his first website in 2021, he has over 2 decades of experience in building online businesses. Now, before founding Roloff Consulting, James spent 9 years leading a sales team at an award-winning web design firm. Today, his expertise spans a wide range of areas, including sales, leadership, digital marketing strategies, social media tactics, and consulting services. One of the core values that drives James is a belief in empowering his clients through education. James finds immense joy in guiding businesses towards success by arming them with the knowledge they drive to thrive in the digital landscape. Welcome, James.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Okay, our second panelist today is Cassie Meyer. Cassie is the executive director of the Harmony Group. The Harmony Group is a nonprofit organization of independent defense law firms. Harmony offers an exclusive selection of vetted law firms, each renowned for their trial skills and results-oriented approach to litigation. Access to Harmony's Defense Counsel network and claims resources are always offered at no cost. Cassie has over 2 decades of experience as a civil defense attorney. Now, in her role as executive director at the Harmony Group, Cassie combines her prior experience as defense attorney, her knowledge of the insurance claims industry, relationship building skills to connect industry members, and she uses them to connect them with trusted defense counsel partners. Cassie's focus is on supporting the claims industry through delivering education, resources, and access to defense attorneys to foster and promote the growth of a collaborative defense environment. Welcome, Cassie.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, we are looking forward to a fantastic topic, very, very relevant as we talk about today's space with social selling. Now, for the audience members, feel free to put your questions in the chat. I will moderate the questions that we have set, but also the ones that you send over. I'm really excited for this chat and to have both panelists because we're going to get 2 different SME perspectives. When we were preparing, we talked about kind of a macro-micro view where we have one side that is sales, and we also have one side that deals with the insurance realm. So if we're ready to go, let's kick this off and get started. Now, let's start off with James. Now, can you kind of tell me a little bit about, to the audience, what is social selling?
Yeah, for sure. So social selling can be very convoluted with a whole bunch of different topics that go into it, with content, with cold outreach, with things like Sales Navigator and marketing automation, all these different aspects. But I like to really simplify it and just say it's sales done through social media. So it's your typical sales activity of trying to prospect, build connections, build up trust with your audience, and ultimately try and generate leads, but just done through social media. So obviously most people do B2B sales, and we're in the insurance space, and different insurance providers working through LinkedIn, but it can also be done through X, Twitter. It can be done through Instagram, Facebook. So it's basically just taking your sales strategy and going through the social channels.
Thank you. Now, if you had to define social selling, Cassie, what would your definition be?
Yes. So, one of the things I would like to say about social setting that I think is critically important to remember, especially in the insurance arena, is that it's a tool, just like all the other tools that we have in our tool belt. And so it's a complement, as far as I'm concerned, it's a complement to all of that in-person networking that we do. That's so critically important, and it's a really nice thing that we have this forum now to do all this social selling, where we can remain connected with the people that we meet in person. Because just I would say even a decade ago, we didn't have what we have now as far as social media is concerned, to have those connections continue on after you meet someone in person. And so for me, social selling is really the way to remain connected with the people that you meet in person, so that they continue to remember you, because that's one of the biggest things when you are selling yourself and your product to someone else, is you have to get the person to remember you. And so social selling is a great way to achieve that.
Yeah, I really like the point where you connected it to like what some are used to of the face to face, that there is this additional, this supplement, there's this other tool out there. And now that we have this other tool, it's really kind of coming into that social selling aspect of it. So, Cassie, how did you get introduced to this topic, as we call it, that social selling?
Yeah, so I will say that I fully became introduced to it when I took over as the executive director of the Harmony Group. So one of the statistics that I learned when I took over is that attorneys are apparently notoriously very bad at social selling. And so I was a practicing defense attorney, and I was one of those people that I didn't pay much attention to it. And then once I got into this new role, I started to realize this whole community that exists, particularly on LinkedIn, that, really encouraged me. I think it's such a positive community. And I just saw that there was so many connections that can be made on a social media platform. So once I took over as executive director, I have now spent a ton of time on social selling.
Yeah, kind of understanding as far as how with your introduction, it sounds like you had some support from there to kind of help you get into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, James, on your end, how did you get introduced to this topic?
Yeah, I mean, so my background, as you mentioned earlier, is in web design and web development and digital marketing. So for a very long time, I've been focused on creating content and trying to get found on search engines like Google, SEO, all that fun stuff. But more recently, I've been more focused on the social side, mostly because as Cassie said, there's a lot of opportunity of nurturing relationships there and leveraging things like social selling and LinkedIn and platforms like that to share resources with your audience, build up that trust, and ultimately foster those relationships in a more successful way. So, I've been active on LinkedIn now for 10 plus years, but really trying to do more educational content. A big switch, I think, for me was looking at a lot of search engines are now, AI first, and they're scraping data. They're not actually sending you to a blog post anymore. You're getting the information right there on the spot. So social selling represents a great new way to get reach online, and again, fosters relationships. So it's been a while now that I've been building towards it, but being in the realm of digital marketing, I've had to be involved with social for a long time.
Yeah, and so James, you talked about these relationships that you have, and I think that is fantastic. But let's say, for example, I'm just starting out. I'm brand new. I don't have any of those social networking, social relationships yet. If I'm just getting started in sales, what would be your tip?
Yeah, so I think and again, Cassie already mentioned already, but connecting with people that you meet at conferences. So I think the low hanging fruit for social selling is connecting with people you already know. So coworkers, vendors and partners you work with, organizations that you're involved in, people you're meeting at different networking events, starting to build out your network there. Yeah, and don't treat it as something separate than your in-person network, right? Like your network is your network when it comes to your professional network. So I would start there, and then once you do that, start engaging with other people, people who are having interesting conversations, joining the comment section, and joining the discussions. Start being actively involved and contributing to your network. Don't just be a lurker and scroll down the feed and not do anything with it. So those are kind of low-hanging fruit, is to connect with people you already know and you're already partnering with and start engaging in the discussions. And then from there, you can start worrying about like creating original content, creating video content, and kind of those next levels of social selling.
Yeah. Well, I will not take any offense to me and myself and my lurking. I will actually take your tips. So those are really great. I think one aspect that you touched on was like we have these networks and people just starting out. They have a network and it may just be face to face or in their company. So I think that is a really great point to kind of say you can have that network in a different space too.
Yeah,
So
for sure. I will say too, the data on that is a little over 90% of people are lurkers. So you don't have to feel bad right now if you're someone who just goes through the feed and doesn't do anything. 90% of people lurk. About 8 to 9% will actually comment on a regular basis, and usually only about 1% of users will post at least once a week. So that's the actual data on it, which also kind of gives me hope, or I'm sharing that with clients too, that if you just comment regularly, you will join that top 10% of users when it comes to the actual engagement in the platform. So the bar is pretty low to actually move beyond lurker status.
nice. Well, thank you. I think I will definitely say having friends who have the data to show I'm not by myself and that I'm
Yes.
actually the majority there. So thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, Kathy, same thing. If someone's just getting started, what would you have as far as tips if they were just getting started on their sales?
Yeah, so I would definitely echo what James has said, which is to start with your own network. So it basically just needs to be part of the to-do list of your follow-up after you meet anyone in any type of setting. So when you're meeting someone in person in a business setting, you always want to follow up with them via email. That's just a given. But as part of that checklist, after you send that email, this is what I do: is I send the email to the individual, and I tell them in the email that I'm going to connect with them on LinkedIn. Then I go on to LinkedIn and I connect with them and I tell them that I sent them an email, so that we have it going both ways. Because especially when you're reaching out to someone via email that is new to you, sometimes your email can get caught in their spam filter. So I've actually had a lot of people where I've connected with them in both ways, but they respond to me on LinkedIn to say, oh my gosh, your message got caught in my spam filter, but I've moved it. So it's kind of that good like backstop to make sure that you get that full connection with that person, but it's work. You definitely have to make sure that every single time that you meet someone that you're connecting with them on LinkedIn. The other thing that I would suggest is that if it's a prospect that you want to have in whatever business way, you might want to develop business with them or something like that, you should also go ahead and follow their company. So you should do both of those things right after you meet them. And then the other thing that I would say that James and I were actually talking about the other day when we were preparing for this panel is that the other thing that you have to remember, especially when you're first starting out, is that you have to set a certain amount of time to dedicate to social selling, and particularly LinkedIn, because otherwise you can just go down this rabbit hole and you've been on there for hours and you haven't got any work done and you're like, what is going on? So you have to remember to set boundaries and limits with respect to the time that you're giving to social selling.
Yeah, I really hope our audience had a pen and was taking notes down, Kathy. You gave some awesome tips, especially for those starting out. But I think your tips also kind of came from your own experience. And so that was fantastic. I hope everyone was writing those down. So we've talked about some of the social media channels. So let's jump into like, what are the best social media channels for insurance professionals to focus on for their lead generation? So this is an insurance related question. So Kathy, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I would say first and foremost is LinkedIn. So kind of another tip for folks, especially in the insurance industry, to be thinking about is you have to remember that LinkedIn is an algorithm. And and that's all it is. So it's going to learn from what you're doing and what kind of participation that you're having in LinkedIn. So you have to actually be very thoughtful about who and what you're following. So I would say that in the insurance realm, what you want to do is you want to join groups and follow groups that, are the leaders in the industry. So, CLM, DRI, RIMS, those types of groups. You can follow those groups so that you're getting content that's relevant to the insurance industry. You then want to think about, okay, who are the companies in the insurance industry that you want to follow? And then who are the individuals that work for those companies that you want to connect with? So that would be the next thing that I would suggest. And once you do that and you've got the content coming into your feed that's directly related to insurance, you have the companies that you're interested in, you're seeing their content as well. You're really off to a great start as far as the insurance related industry is concerned. Another tip that I'll give, again, back to the fact that we all have to remember that LinkedIn is just an algorithm. If you don't like what you're seeing in your feed, you have to change your behavior, because what's going to happen is the feed's going to give you more and more of what you're doing. So if you keep commenting on certain types of posts, you're going to keep receiving those posts in your feed. If you're getting too much of them, pull back on your comments, and then you'll start to see other things pop up into your feed.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that. When I was thinking of the best social media channels, I was thinking of different platforms, and you really went one step further, talking about the different groups and what you're following. I really appreciated that. Okay, so James, let's go over on your end. What is your perspective on the best social media channels for insurance professionals?
Yeah, the cliche answer is just the one you use, right? So there's tons of different platforms out there, and they all have their different pros and cons. And LinkedIn obviously is the B2B, platform that most people are aware of, and that's probably where I spend the most of my time. Yeah. But depending on the kind of content you want to create, and depending on the kind of conversations you want to have, and depending on what your social selling strategy is, there's definitely other platforms out there. TikTok obviously has been in the news a lot recently. But I will tell you that's an incredibly good platform for having good, engaging discussions. If you look at the discussions that happen on TikTok or on X is another prime example of that too. I know some people involved in Rise actually who I follow on X, and we have conversations on there. It's a much more raw and engaging direct conversation, where LinkedIn's much more of like clapping your hands for someone getting promotions and things like that. It's a little bit softer on LinkedIn, let's put it that way, which isn't a bad thing. And you can reach with people, you connect with them that way. But if your goal is to have like direct engaging conversations, or if your goal is to really leverage short form video, for instance, then something like Instagram or TikTok might make sense. The big caveat I'll say, what I see a mistake of when people first start trying to do a social selling strategy, is they try and do all of them, or they try and do 3 or 4 different platforms at once, and that's not going to work for you. I think you really have to think about like 1 or 2 platforms that you want to use, and then start there, and then as you get comfortable creating content, you're building your strategy up, you might involve some more platforms. A very common methodology, obviously, is to, maybe say LinkedIn's your primary platform, and like Cassie said, you are using that for connecting with your prospects and having conversations and following companies. But maybe you're creating videos on TikTok, right? And so maybe you'll post those videos, what's called cross-posting videos from there onto LinkedIn. So you can do some of that too. So a very long answer, but I would say do the one that makes sense for you and your strategy.
Yes, I really like that. I like that, kind of having that tip, because when we think about best, it's like, okay, I'm going to write my list down. But really, it's like what I'm using now, and then have some semblance of a strategy, not just a big blanket approach. Yeah. So I think that's really good advice for the audience. I want to jump down, and I want to start talking about some real examples here. So, James, I want to start with you. So, what are some examples of successful social selling campaigns in the insurance industry? So, we're starting to talk now about social selling and campaigns and boots to the ground. What are some examples that you can give?
Yeah, so there's kind of layers of ways you can do social selling and the kind of success you can get out of it. And I think on a more foundational level of what success looks like, and some of the stuff we've done with our clients is just simply following up after you meet with someone and then starting to actually comment and engage with them. So much of sales and business in general is based on trust, right? Do you trust that that person that you're working with will, fulfill the things that they're going to do? And so a lot of building trust is simply showing up and being consistent. If you see the same person show up again and again, different formats, it can be as simple as just commenting on posts for that company or for that person. That is kind of a basic level of building trust. So, I've seen it work simply by having sales teams go out, connect with prospects, and start engaging with the things they're doing. And then if you post once a week, that person will say, yeah, I keep seeing you on your feed. I see you talking about this topic. I'd love to learn more about that. That's a very common, case study 101 thing we've seen too. The next level above that, though, and the things that I've seen really kind of throw gasoline on the fire when it comes to social selling, is starting to leverage more of the content creation side of things, where you're teaching your audience, you're giving them information, you're empowering them, and then you're encouraging them with some sort of call to action. So I know we're doing a LinkedIn Live event right now. I recommend that for all of my clients, of doing educational webinars where you're talking about the things that are pertinent in your industry, and then having some sort of call to action that leads to some lead generation coming off that your sales team can follow up with. We've seen some incredible success with that. And it really just starts with education, right? Like you having your voice be, a way to share information that empowers your prospects to solve the problems they're facing, and then encourage them to take action. So I think a lot of it just starts with making connections and then using that as a way to teach people.
Yeah. I really liked in your response for our audience, whether you're new to social selling or whether you're on that next level up, like you talked about, you already have some posts. I really like that the examples that you gave kind of speak to both ends of the spectrum as far as anyone who's in our audience. So let's go over to Cassie. What examples do you have as far as when we talk about successful social selling campaigns in insurance?
Yes. So there's lots of examples that are out there that we're all probably actually seeing in our feeds, so long as we're, following different insurance related groups and companies. So some of them that are most memorable is we have AIG. They did an Amazing Moms campaign where they were highlighting moms and their financial journeys for financial planning to, again, help their financial product that they were trying to market. State Farm, they did a really nice campaign during hurricane season in 2020 where they were providing personalized advice to folks that might be hit by hurricanes. And so I think with both of those examples, I think we can learn what made them successful. And there's a couple of things I think to take from that. The first is, posting content like James said, but the second is offering help to others is really, really successful when you're talking about social media. And so I see this often in my feed where there's, especially with insurance companies, they're posting lots of really great information about how they can help all of us with our risk needs. And so that's definitely, if we're talking specifically about insurance, that's something that you want to be thinking about. Now, if you're new to social selling and you're not to that level, you're not AIG and you're not State Farm, what are you going to do? And the best advice that I have is that you need to be reading the content and then you need to provide a comment at the bare minimum to the content that you feed. One other tip that I would give is that AI is everywhere, including on LinkedIn. So whenever you put that you're going to put a comment, you can write the comment and then you can click a button that says rewrite with AI. I would suggest that you don't do that. You need to be authentic in what you are posting on any social media platform. I've actually had people tell me that they know when they are receiving something from someone that's written by AI. So I use AI more like a thesaurus if I'm looking for a word, but I want to use my own words when I am commenting. And I will tell you that if you comment, even on these big companies, the postings that they put out, if you put a really authentic comment, they will respond to you. And they will notice you. And like James said, the more that you engage in a social media platform, the more that you will get noticed. And that's actually a true fact on LinkedIn because, again, it's an algorithm. and it values conversation. So the more that you're willing to be part of that conversation, the more visible you'll be.
I think that is great. I really like the examples that you gave of successful strategies that companies have used, and then really tied it into individually. How can we interact and engage? So that was talking about successful. Let's now jump to the other end and let's talk about some mistakes. So, Kathy, what are some of the common mistakes that insurance professionals make when they're engaging in social selling?
Yeah, so one of the biggest mistakes that I think that folks make with social selling, that I think that they make just all the time with selling, is to be too sales focused. You have to just think about sales as you are just trying to engage with people authentically, and you're trying to get to know people. So leave the sales out of it when you're doing social selling, and just focus on trying to really authentically engage with people on a social media platform. The other thing that I would say is, especially again, if we're talking about LinkedIn, you have to be consistent with your engagement on the platform, because again, you're working with the algorithm, and you want that algorithm to put you in front of the people that you want to be in front of. So make sure that you are consistently posting on LinkedIn. And then the last thing that I would also suggest that people need to think about is, do not neglect engagement with you. So if you post something and people comment on your post, make sure that you respond back, because people don't want to feel like they're being ignored, especially if they took the time to put a comment on your post. So make sure that you're not neglecting the engagement that's happening with you.
Yes. If they post something, make sure that you comment back. They took the time to authentically respond to yours. What a great tip. Especially when we talk about what mistakes, like they may just be leaving them there, like, thanks for the comment.
Low-hanging fruit for sure.
Yeah.
something very, very simple that people can do. Okay, James, what would be your perspective when we think about common mistakes of insurance professionals with social selling?
Yeah, and Cassie already had some great ones. And just kind of echoing the comment on not just selling online. Our approach was always, 80-20 to it, right? So like 80% of your content should be educational, talking about the problems you solve, not about your products or your solutions or come by now. Every once in a while, it's okay to have some sort of call to action. And when I say call to action, it might be something like a lead magnet to register for a webinar, or to download a guide. It doesn't have to be a direct sales push either. But yeah, the bulk of what you should be doing is educating. So that's definitely a huge mistake that I see a lot of sales reps make in particular, is they just use it as a prospecting tool. They treat it like a cold email outreach, and they start spamming people to book a meeting, which is not the right approach. But as far as the common mistakes beyond that, I mean, the number one is no clarity around what you do and who you do it for. So many people, when you go to their profile, it's just not even remotely optimized to explain that. And that's a huge mistake, because you can spend all this time connecting with people, posting, commenting, all these things to get visibility on social media. People will click on your name. It's a natural thing to do if you're interested. And what do they see when they get there? And more often than not, most people have resumes. They talk about their accomplishments, their background, and their job position. And that's not going to help people understand what you do. And if you are in a business development role, your page or your profile shouldn't read like a big brochure, obviously, and just talk about your company and products. But you should very clearly articulate what you do and who you do it for. So a lot of that means understanding who your audience is and having a persona written out that you understand who that target buyer of yours is. And then using language on your profile that makes sense for that. So updating your headline, updating your about section, adding featured posts and featured content that explain things. Your profile is your landing page for social media. So that is a huge thing, and I would say a vast majority of professionals, and this is definitely true in the insurance space, but it's true in other spaces too, have not touched their profiles and not thought about that. So my recommendation is put yourself in your target persona's shoes, go to your profile and see if your profile excites yourself and makes you want to actually take action and contact you.
Yes. In this last 30 minutes, I have so many action items for myself with my own social selling. So I definitely think that our audience too is going to have all kinds of action items, from the tips, from the mistakes, and just a general background of what social selling is. So thank you, James, and thank you, Cassie, for sharing insight and perspectives on this. Now, please join us. We have next Wednesday, Rise is presenting the Wisdom Wednesday, and it is on executive presence. So make sure to register and come for that 30-minute Wisdom Wednesday. And I want to thank our panelists, and also want to thank everyone who came to watch this afternoon. I hope you have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.